Remote Theater Experiences is pleased to share a live reading of Careen by Carolyn Smart.
1930s starved us off the fields and deafened us with the sawing of insects, the anger, and the pungent need. The canyons, the Gulf Plains, the coast, the lowlands, the hill country, the basin, the range. What do they ask of us now that the soil offers nothing? Shh. Hear the thin, distant whisper of the tribes, the mound builders, Pueblo, Apache, Hassanite, Comanche, the high singing of the Spaniards, the Mexicans, bleached bones along the Rio Grande, the dust of Sam Houston, the skull of Zachary Taylor, the fallen at the sieges, the dead and dying, all across the plains. Wander the land at night and hear the screech owl lament, crying our history, our sad, empty fields, how they speak this American shame, this endless churning landscape of our fathers who have lost most all they hold dear. Come to the cities, in your wagons on foot with your mules, your women, your mangy puling children, cobble together whatever shelter you may. Tell the old tales, mouth the history, taste the dust upon your tongue. Take flight from one border to another, just keep on. In the thermal lift and yearn, there are markers of the rivers east and west, Pecos, Rio Grande, Brazos, Colorado, Red, and still we thirst. And the black oil gushing out and out of the spindle tops, and the strangers who come to town, electric chairs in the back rooms, and men who throw the switch, and the prison farms with lean and beaten men running before the riders with their guns. The miles covered in cars, going nowhere, but always from here, then turning back and back again to the same old gutted roads with faces that stare at you like death is joyriding in the back seat. And the blacks all packed up and went somewhere else. When the storms blew in, there was nothing left behind but the weevil and our gaunt faces peeping out at nothing. Now the women's work is over. They lie on pallets. The lack is another part of breathing, and the taste of charity in their mouths, and their breasts hanging like pockets of despair. And who remembers now the hurricanes in Indianola, Galveston, again in Galveston, the many thousands who died there, clutching the Bible to their acquiescent hearts. We walk the streets, line the curbs, foraging the news, lean bewildered against brick-warm walls, outrage pooling in our eyes. When will it come? Justice and respect. When? Into the long white ribbon of road, the future careens away.
From heartbreak, some people have suffered. From weariness, some people have died. But take it all in all, our troubles are small, till we get like Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie Parker from the trail's end.
Buck Barrow. I had one steadfast wish, avoid the idle day. The devil plays upon a fallow soul. Also be a helpmeet to my man, raise the children upright. Pray, choose to live within the dust bowl, sleep beneath the wagon, haul cotton with ribboned hands. Not hard to sweep an earthen floor unless you pressed your will against the wind, grain speckling your eyes. Taught to read, but only in the Bible. I grew to read the gutters about my children, saw pictures there of widows they made who wore their bridal clothes to funerals. It is no lie there was drinking. There's only so much room for endless grief. Few regrets, I'd look forward to the picnics, red beans and rice, fried chicken in the hand, shrill cicadas and evening light. Listen, why is my youngest out on the road past midnight? Patience wears thin as skin. Gunfire all over this land. A human husk I was, yet fierce till the expected came. Forgiveness if I did not bend, purchased one grave for two loved sons.
Henry Barrow. Ever see a horse run? teeth just grinding air, shine coming off it like a blazing afternoon. I'd like to get me one. First day I went to school, I fainted straight down to the ground. Never took to reading. Never cared for that. What good would reading have been to me? To read my boys' dark history, blood on their hands and their heads, and all the weeping in the world fell down upon my head and in my house? No. Only time we found some happiness, we'd just been wed, and we had but 5 good years. Never got no horse, but went to church and done the proper thing, married Cumie. She was just 16 and under 5 foot tall. She was a rock to me all her days. Started with a rented field and babies. We had 7. All lived to tell of hunger, constant moving and no time left to dream. Jesus watched us every day. They called me quiet. True. I labored till I dropped. Cumie made the children go to church and school, and she made those young'uns mind. My daddy never hit me the way her daddy done, and a whipping sets them straight, I reckon. Glad it never fell to me. I was too busy on the journey to provide. We never had no time to play or watch them grow, no room for grace, nor kindliness, nor hope. They grew up, lit out for town, and I worked till my hands were bloody. I tilled the soil till the cotton root rot came, and the weevils ate the rotted crop right off. We moved to Dallas, to the bog, started there again. I was a scrap dealer, a station owner. Sometimes I sold hooch, drank some too, some days. Through illness and the dusty storms, my children did provide for me. The boys would drive their flashy cars and dress real well. They told me all would turn out fine. They'd buy good land, pasture with some shade. You know, the things I'd yearned for in this life. I did not shed a tear to see them in the ground. Sat still with Cumie while she mourned. My head held you low, and as fits a man without a stroke of good luck. Buck's first run. What I'd done best was plain outlaw. Maybe I was born one from the get-go. Quit school after 3rd grade, and yeah, I was a happy boy. I'd hunt or fish, play cowboy on my own with sticks for riding high. I had a temper, but cooled down real fast. Had some game roosters I got hold of, and my sister Nell knew where, but she never told. My brother Bub loved me so, but he was young, so hung on back when I let out for Dallas and the lights of town. Got myself a wife real fast. Fixed up a place with Margaret and lived a life. Me and some boys, we got a car and was on a tear, roaming the streets in search of booty. We found too much attention from the law, and I became a likely at the time. They got to know my name real well. Margaret and me, we had twin boys, but one died small and Margaret went away. I never saw my son again. I bought a pit bull, moved back home, but when my dog tore off little Mary's dress, Mama said we had to go. I fell in love again, this time with Pearl. But when we had a baby girl, things went downhill quick. I was on my own with low-grade friends, but to my brother Bud, it looked like glamour times. From Denton down to Waco, I got to stealing cars. It was good until the law caught me up and locked me in. That's when my kin, they brought the wagon down for me, got work and picked along to San Antone, show the judge some good and proper ways. My daddy's nails were ripped right off his hands by prickly plants. Mama slept below the wagon. They worked for victuals, silage for the horse, and that old judge, he said I could go free. One day, while walking on the street, I met a preacher's daughter named Blanche. She called me daddy, and I called her baby. Man, she was a looker. Things was fine. I told my youngest brother, Elsie, and I told him true. You never break the law until you're caught.
Hard scrabble, sweet-mouthed girl. I was better than the rest from the minute I was born. My daddy was a bricklayer in the midst of sodbusters. I was the most beautiful of babies, eyes blue as Texas sky, and a mind could glean anything. In Sunday school, when I was a toddler, I sang my heart out for the crowd. They wanted hymns. I tossed out, "He's a devil in his own hometown." It rang right through those shaky old pews. All I wanted was fame, to get away from the dreariness. But Daddy died when I was small, and Mama cried all day. We lived in hell, or Cement City, and school was all I had. Won every prize for writing and for my speech and spelling. Loved a sweet-talk boy named Roy, and married 'fore I turned 16. We set up house 2 blocks from my own mama, but that was still too far, and every night I cried. Handsome Roy was just a thief. He left me for the road, then the jailhouse. I went to serving food and drink at Marco's, then the other spot downtown, right near the courthouse. Oh shoot, those were the days. They were fine till hard times hit and all those cafes shut. I wanted love. I wanted things like in the talkies, yearned for big excitement. Not much else to do but drink and dance. But one sweet night, I headed for my brother Buster's house. His party changed my life forever.
Clyde at Buster's party. Clarence brought me and I was looking around, and when she walked in, the air itself just turned to something new. Blonde hair flying, firecracker eyes exploring everything, and when she seen me, her face had just blossomed with clear intentions. I couldn't let the chance pass. I stretched out my hand, stood close, brought her next to the window so I could show her which was my fancy ride. Talk going on round us, her blue eyes steady, hair full of light streaming in from the porch. After I kissed her, she gave me a little smile and crushed near flat against me when I held her. She no taller than a pony. Thought I could have picked her up and run. Heard she had a husband in the joint. She said it weren't real. She was quick as a hiccup, boarding school and what to do in a hole like Cement City when you're hurting for more and nothing ever happens. Never saw another want the same so fierce. To drive and be alive the way we could if we had chances and the world ran right. Jesse James writes letters to the press, and I do too. If he takes mad chances, you bet I do. If he takes $2 and gives it to a man so he might drink to the health of Jesse James, I will do the very same. I will. Never mind the conductor dead. Never mind the shooting of the innocents. I done that too. I have felt the same as he. If he moves outside the law with his brother Buck and I will call ourselves a gang. The Pinkertons heard his mama. This is a grievous truth. The law will do the same most anywhere. If he writes about that, then I will too. If he takes the name of Mr. Howard, that will be my name. Them bad times he had in Northfield and Gallatin, or when he was an army man in Wild, I'd like to talk to him of courage in the ride. His mama sold the pebbles off his grave. Maybe mine will do the same. His killer was a coward. Maybe mine will be too.
Baby thugs captured. Barrow, the youngest of the trio, makes the most spectacular attempt to escape capture. Middletown, March 21st, Associated Press. 3 young desperados were finally apprehended after a series of car thefts, armed robberies, and shootouts. The 3, named as William Turner, Emery Abernathy, and Clyde Barrow, are locked up in the Waco jail awaiting trial on charges of burglary and bank robbery. Living up to their recent nickname of the Baby Dumbbells, they botched an attempt to escape by driving right toward the officers. Barrow tried to elude his captors by hiding out beneath the house for several hours and stealing another car before a desperate race down a one-way street. One unnamed officer of the court was overheard to say that all would likely serve their time in Eastham Prison Farm. The Waco Times-Herald, March 21st, 1930.
Wagon. Weren't no wagon but a cage upon a long bed of a truck. Chained by the neck, we climbed aboard from Waco all the way. I wondered what I would see when we'd arrive. I was a slinky kid, and I shook inside my bones for thinking on it all. Ralph Foltz, he told me of the bat, the beating as they laid men out upon the floor with sand laced into the wounds, the screaming and the stench. He talked about the barrel, how they would make you ride all night and day, legs numb and hands bound tight. To keep our spirits up, we'd talk of Jesse James and William Boney. How'd they let 'em on, those bastards, how'd they let 'em on. The wagon kept on rolling. There was no going home. Punk. I just turned 20 when they sent me down to Eastham. Ed Crowder, 6 foot tall, twice my weight. He was a robber and a runner before he come inside these walls, and no one caused no trouble when he were boss con of our hell hall. He said I was his bitch, and he laid his hands on me and ripped me up from behind, and I felt myself tore down one push upon the next. I wanted to die, but I'd kill him first before I go. Aubrey Scaly, he was doing 50 years. He took the murder on his head for me. He was an honest man, and there are some good men in there, for true. Cripple. When I come down to Eastham, I had never truly felt the cruel beak of despair. Bonnie did not write me for too long, but I reckon this, she weren't made to be no nun. 10 hours a day working the wood pile, running back and forth from where we sleep, and 8 high riders chasing down the slow pokes, and I know I'll be one soon. They beat us down like rented mules. It is their fun. Took the axe to my left foot and chopped off my big toe, part of the other. No damn good to man nor beast, they let me free. I was a cripple all my days beyond. Got me one big plan. Break right into Eastham, free some boys, and take my sweet revenge for what the law has done to me.
Convict dies in pen fight in Houston. Convicted robber is stabbed 15 times in brawl. Houston, October 30th, Associated Press. Ed Crowder, 30, convicted Houston bank robber, was killed late last night in a knife fight with another convict in the barracks of the Eastham State Farm, according to reports from Captain B.B. Monzengo. In a desperate battle that threw the barracks into turmoil and sent several hundred convicts scurrying for safety, Crowder met his death after suffering 15 stab wounds on his chest, back, and body. The Dallas Morning News, October 30th, 1931.
Darling, why don't something happen? I wrote in my diary, until one night it did. From the first second I saw him, I knew he was the one. He wanted all I wanted from a life, to claw our way to where we aimed to be. He looked to me kind of like Ronald Coleman, with his fine clothes and fancy car. And when I stood up close, he felt just right beside me. He had thick, dark, wavy hair and dancing eyes. Said he'd sometimes felt too short with the other girls. My mama even said she liked the dimple that would pop out when he smiled. I worshipped him. There was no doubt. When he went down to Eastham, I did all right to wait, but a year and some is long when you're yearning. Got myself a new man and a job, but found no joy to life, with nothing going on until I looked up from the couch and saw him hobble in the door. Oh, my darling wounded boy, come for me at last. I leapt right into his arms. Clay and Ray and Ralph formed up the Barrow gang, and I went too. We were together now. Let no one dare say otherwise.
Nincompoop. I don't like it when they poke at me and call me dumb as dirt. One night, a true blue northerner, and the roads were all awash. It turned out my baby Bonnie had to ride on a mule. Her luck had flown for cash or cars that time, and on her painful ride, she must have thought, "Who is this knucklehead I left my mama for?" Nothing much to eat and sleeping in her car, smelling bad some days, and Bonnie trying to look her best, hair combed and makeup on. Real smart she was, and kindly. Sometimes I'd hide beneath the house, yet they always caught me. Inferior machinery to blame. I do insist that Fords are the best. I could not get my hands on one that day. What must she have thought of me that time I ran towards the law and right on past? Two of them were loading, and I got away, and they put her in the slammer. She wrote a real good poem inside. That's all she says about it now. She loves me so. I was best when I was on the road, high riding in some fine flathead V8 I stole. Found money in them sometimes, mostly just for food or some for shelter. Clean white shirts and an ammo for the road. I'm not a fancy man like Pretty Boy or Dillinger, but I was feared of nothing when behind the wheel. They were here, they'd like to say so. Sure as shooting, never been so good upon my feet.
Mule theft charge to man and woman, Kaufman, Texas, Associated Press. Charges of mule theft, auto theft, and burglary were drawn here against a man given his name as Jack Sherman, 27, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a bob-haired blonde woman given her name as Betty Thornton, 23, Dallas. Covered with mud, they were captured 25 miles southeast of here after a pursuit and gun battle in the best manner of the Old West. Sherman was shot in the hand, and a second man escaped in the battle. The chase began when Police Chief David Drennan saw two men and a woman entering the Robert H. Brock store at Maybank. They fled west in a car believed stolen at Tyler. It mired after a few miles. As Drennan and Officer Ballard approached, the trio mounted two mules and splashed through 5 miles north to Kemp. There, a second automobile was stolen and turned southeast toward Maybank. It too mired. The three continued their flight on foot and fired on the officers as they approached. The mud-spattered girl, weighing less than 100 pounds, said she had no part in the fight and didn't know what she was doing in it. She carried no weapons. The Dallas Herald-Times, April 21st, 1932.
Butcher dead and Clyde's to blame. Me, Ted Rogers, and John Russell stole a car and went to check out a likely spot in Hillsboro. Combo Jewelry's general store, optician practice, and garage. Got to be a little something going on down there, but when I saw that woman staring at my mug, I recollected how I knew her kid, and I said to call it off. But Ted and Johnny, they liked the place a lot and wouldn't hear his jinx like I knew it was. I sat outside smoking when I heard that shot. I waited for the worst. They got but $40, some bracelets in a bag, and an old man butchered dead on the floor. I had not been inside that night. I did not fire a shot, and my mug was the only one she recalled. Stringtown, August 5th, around 9 p.m. Ray, Ross, and me, we drove into Stringtown. They'd started up the dancing, and the girls looked cute as possums. Band had started way down yonder, and Ross was right quick, was up there dancing to that tune, and out of nowhere, Sheriff Maxwell put his foot up on the running board, and I could see his face as he blew back on the grass, and 6 bullets deep inside of him, yet he lived to tell. Did not drive too far before my tire caught some damn culvert and the car flipped sideways, so me and Ray, we started running, and there was no safety then. They was close to us shooting, and the gunfire flew like spray, and I turned, I aimed direct and smooth, and he fell dead. The undersheriff Moore. Right then I reckoned it, no end of running till the end.
W.D. Jones's tale. I seen Clyde Barrow first when I was 5 years old. He was all camped out beneath the Oak Cliff Viaduct in Dallas. Nowhere else to go. My kin, except my mama and my brothers, died of flu, and that's when mama grew tight to Cumie. They was true friends, those two. We all rode down together, picking cotton all the way with the aim to bag a judge to let Buck out of jail. Me and LC, best of buds those days. Grew up together doing what we could, I did not read nor write, would do anything for money, stealing bikes and such, and bigger things. LC had his daddy's car one Christmas Eve, and we'd been dancing and drinking brew. When LC's brother, Clyde, said he could use my help, I reckon that was swell. Seemed kind of big to be out there with them, Clyde and Bonnie, famous. It was good to know they could count on me. Within one day, Clyde Champion Barrow killed Doyle Johnson, shot him in the face in Temple, Texas, and I had murder on my head. I'd lived but 16 years. When they say Clyde Barrow was the best, hell, I know that because I rode with him. He'd drive 1,000 miles if he thought the law was after him. No way they'd be caught alive. They knew their end. Nights I'd see him on his knees, I reckon praying for his soul or for a longer life. Hell bent on getting around the law, but sometimes he got tired. We used to wear each other's clothes. He was a small man, just like me, quiet as a cat if dogs were close. Never wanted dirt upon his skin, never used bad language, though he had a temper, and he and Bonnie sure could fight. 8 months I lasted, till I'd had enough of blood and hell. Near Dexter, Iowa, where Buck and Blanche were caught, I took some buckshot to the face and chest, and I was bleeding out. Heck, all of us were hurting real bad. But Clyde, he done took some farmer's car, and we three lit a shuck right out of town. I left them when they'd healed enough they could get by without me. I hooked it back to Texas and got turned into the law. Did my time, married, found some happiness in my life. That damn fool movie made it look so fine, like it was sort of glamorous, I'll ride, but it was hell.
Long distance drive. Clyde knew all the routes from Texas up to Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, and back, on and on into the cloak of the night. Evening lights rushing past, meager dwellings in the fields, a woman standing at the window, or in the golden distance, a child or someone small. Some nights I'd waken, not remember where we'd been or where we were headed. I'd say, "Sugar, where do you think we are?" He always knew which way to go, how fast to drive to get there. Sleepless, I'd get going on polishing and loading the guns. Sometimes in my head, thinking up a rhyme or two. Maybe I'd say them. I'd be pleased to do the watching when it was Clyde's turn to sleep. Listening to the night and thinking on our lives, just looking for the sun to rise.
Blanche's complaint. What was I to Clyde or Bonnie but a body to buy their meals or wash their dirty clothes? Never asked for more than to be up close to Buck, who I would follow through the dripping jaws of hell, and I did. You tell me if I lie. No sense denying. Buck was a married man, with babies long before he saw my face, but swore it wasn't the same with me. And I'd been hurt in marriage to a man I never wanted, bought me from my mama. I begged my daddy to save me, but he would not leave the farm. It was not long before my body broke and I was left barren, used me way too bad. I left that man. I ran away. No one ever cared for me at all, but Buck. I fell in love with Buck first thing, convinced him to go back inside and do out his full time. I missed him sore, but then good times all on our own till those two show up. Real drunk. Buck's favorite Clyde and Bonnie with their big talk of fame and pride. I begged Buck not to go, but from March until July, we rode together. We played cards, slept late, and sometimes we're happy. Drove through 10 or 15 states. I would not know the day nor hour. Shooting, screaming, all the blood. I prayed we'd die together. Buck and I. No one heard that prayer.
Buck knows blood runs thick. When told I got full pardon, I was happy as a gopher in soft dirt. Blanche and me, we went to see our mama on the farm. For what she'd been pining for was a dog, Snowball, and he'd been living there. We made plans together for a life. When Bud showed up with Bonnie and that kid, they were full lit. I knowed it, but did not care. For Bud and me, well, kin is kin, and Bonnie crawled in bed with Blanche while WD kept lookout from the sill. There was rifles leaning up against the walls. Blanche, she begged me not to go, but all we planned was holiday, and the five of us, we'd have a time, and Bonnie wanted girl talk after all the riding with just them boys. I said, okay, we're going. Blanche, she made that Snowball ride along. The Joplin place, chatter, laughing, tasty food and soft warm beds. Yeah, someone watching out for us, the guard walking round and round. We paid him good, but it was too good to last. Blanche looked sweet as pie. She liked dropping puzzle bits in place while we dealt out the cards and drank. We had ourselves some fun till late one night. The law came. I shot one stone cold dead. I blew another's limbs away. To name them, they were Harryman, McGinnis, and later it was Marshall Humphrey, lawmen, all. Their murders meant the chair, the spot where I was headed then, both me and Bud, but I did not care. I liked it while it lasted. It was for kin, that's all.
Blanche's first firefight. Joplin. I did not know how gunfire tears apart a body. Saw a lawman laying there with brains spilled down his shoulders and his arm bust off. To close my eyes, it is seared there. Blood dark and thick, soft gray folds of brain. I was carrying WD to the car, just dragging him, his chest and side bubbling with blood, and Snowball lit out, just never stopped running, though I called and called. The sound of bullets whizzing past my head. For a moment, I thought I could outrun them and gather up those things I'd left behind, the camera and the papers and the clothes. Screamed so hard inside the car because it was all gone. My hopes for life with Buck, my dreams all dead. Everything I'd held tight in my hands, all pried away that day. The cards that Donnie dealt me out.
Like us, the photographs left behind at Joplin. We come shining from the tray as real, as fleshed out as fine bone forms. Even our shoes flashing. We are some fun jokers. Are not coarse, cannot lie, do not limp or bleed. Are kind and funny, desperately in love. We are you, but better. No denying. Fix us there, that moment when you like us, want to be like us. We was never truly famous till now.
Nothing lies more than a photograph. Pearly teeth and a cigar. I never smoked it. Finger on a trigger. Did not fire a gun at all. Knew how to clean it well, light and happy. Sharp clothes, tiny teeth smiling. Lips like hairline fractures. Small, disguised as mall.
Sunday clothes. Man gives teaching to the world when he dress right. Clean and well kept, soft hat tipped smooth. How a man should look all week if he wants to know respect. Give me some of that when I break into East Town. Starved by boll weevils when the bog is not the route I chose. It is a soul's death. I am a crippled, thin, short man, but I dress well, and when I roar past your joint in Henry Ford's best machine, you'll all come out and see me and you'll cheer. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 10th of April. Mr. Henry Ford, Detroit, Michigan. Dear sir, while I have still got breath in my lungs, I will tell you what a dandy car you make. I have drove Fords exclusively when I could get away with one. For sustained speed and freedom from trouble, the Ford has got every other car skinned. And even If my business hasn't been strictly legal, it don't hurt anything to tell you what a fine car you have in the V8. Yours truly, Clyde Champion Barrow.
Prayer, Bonnie. My mama raised me just this way, each night to say my prayers and clean my heart out. All I felt for Clyde made true again for me when I woke up one night and saw him kneeling on the floor, just talking to his Lord like I do. He looked so like a child when down upon his knees. The Lord must love him, as he does all little things. Oh, look out for us, please, Lord, as surely no one else can. It feels like standing naked in the wind each day to leave these cabins or the car in the woods behind. Sometimes in the dark, my fears rise up and chase me. Could come any time our final battle, and when it does, I know my heart will rest with you. I pray it will. I hope there will be rest. Amen.
The clothes that Blanche ran with. Golden yellow spring outfit with white detailing, white gloves, and pumps to match, ruined by the grease that time that I drove the car. Gray silk flounce skirt, modified cape shoulders and cloche hat, shoes with bows across the ankle, light blue dress, tiny buttons all up and down the front, deep scooped neckline, multicolor cotton skirt, layers, short sleeve top, tiny leather belt shown off my waistline. Blue crepe evening gown with low cut back and lace shoulders I hemmed up short to wear around the Joplin place. Tight yellow jodhpurs make me look so nice and trim and went real well with my riding boots. What I wore the night we were caught.
End of day, Texas wind. I was not raised up to be gentle nor feeble, yet the cruel heat that blows across my face is like the way it hurt me out. Driving to Pine Woods, settling in the shade, shadows flow across my back like waves upon the Galveston sand. Dust flies up like this, we lean against the board and eat our meager meal, then settle in for all the needs of darkness. Whoever has the turn to wake and watch will spend hours picking grit from grim and anxious teeth. Is this the glamour they describe when they write about our run? I feel the shadows coil right around me, pressing my dog-tired head against the ground. Barrel fires. The flames reflect faces on our drive, seeing two good lookers on a holiday. Rode up to Bay City, along the lakes, all over Chicago. Why the hell not? We're young. Got a pass to see the World's Fair. Girls wrapped up in ice cubes, midgets, General Balbo and his 24 seaplanes all the way from Rome. Fan dancers, sky ride. We ate lying on a beach most all the time. Motor courts, long and dreamless sleeps. We did not listen to the news, nor much outside. We laughed like hell. I sang some, Bonnie rhymed. I grieve that my old mom and pa have never felt as free. The day Fatty Arbuckle died, we hid in the woods and listened to the chatter, all the eyes of Texas looking out for us. It is June 33 and the heat is truly on, more than 100 in the shade for weeks now. A fat man like that, he'd surely tumble to the downs. We could have spoke together easy, for he knew how falsehood feels. They look down from heaven and see us, all of our dead ones. Is there happiness at last? The press said it was them that made us, but it was our photos and our poems and our clothes. All the press has ever done was deal a pack of lies. Great big blue-eyed baby, Fatty Arbuckle. He knew the truth can crack your heart. The accident at Wellington. Heading to meet up with Buck, and I was driving good when off the road and in the air, coming down in silent, slow shift bodies, foul mouth acrobats. We are Holy speckled flash and spark, clipped and turning headlights sizzling on through the air. The stock, stale world. Me and WD were standing there outside, shaky, wringing head. I turned to look. Clip, blood, bits flash, edge of river, broken bridge. Bonnie pressed against the engine, locked there under the battery, leaking thigh to ankle, bloody all the way to the bone.
2 Texas desperados kidnapped 2 officers, woman companion injured as car is wrecked. Farm family terrorized, 1 is shot. Wellington, Texas, June 21st, Associated Press. 2 machine gunning motorists today terrified a family farm, kidnapped 2 officers, and escaped with an injured woman companion after their automobile plunged over a road embankment. Sheriff Dick Corey and City Marshal Paul Hardy, kidnapped in the sheriff's motor car, were driven to near Ehrlich, Oklahoma, and left wired to a tree. They identified the gunman as Clyde Barrow, Dallas, Texas, desperado, and Icy Barrow, his brother. The New York Times, June 21st, 1933.
Proud flesh. It was not bullets flying round the risk we took that carved my deepest scar. It was the driving. One mad night when Clyde flipped off the road and all was sudden mayhem, overturned disaster, knee to ankle, burned into a flesh-made trench. I do not recall much of those early mornings. To wake and find myself pried from the car onto the legs of strangers and then into the dark again, and driving through the night some wood's deep hidden room, lifted into bed, from there to toilet when I needed it. Me screaming, drinking brew, they poured all they had into my care and brought my sister there for aid and comfort. I sobbed tears, prayed hard, pain greater than I could ever reckon. I don't recall much till my leg drew up beneath me, and in the evenings and mornings, afternoons, one long hurt and drink like armor on the outside of an open wound, raised up and thick, a binding that held us fast. It was one thing Clyde did wrong, that wretched Russian night and crash there at the bridge. But when alone, our wounds displayed to one another, it was a pledge of all we were, which would not break nor bend.
Let's take him, Clyde said, and some people thought he meant gunplay. Right after the crash at Wellington, WD and me, we ran into Laws, Corey, and Hardy, and took their car right quick with every gun we had, just pointing at their heads. And I laid Bonnie on them, and they sat in the back, and she had most terrible great pain, and I was driving like the dogs was after me. I needed to get back with Blanche and Buck real quick, and I was riled up, real tense, so I thought I would string those boys along a bit. Asking if they'd heard tell of the Barrow brothers. Hardy said he knew of Buck, but no one by the name of Clyde. Thought he had me there. When we caught up with the others, they was sleeping in the car. Buck asked if I was aiming to bump these 2 boys off, and I said I'd done drove with them so long I got to liking them. So we tied them up to a tree and got away. They'd been real good to Bonnie.
When we drive this way, I like to watch the blur of trees and the dusty day, how they turn to blue at a certain hour. I brush my hand across the cotton skirt to feel my hips rise up against my fingertips. We drive so long and fast, I forget. I wear my bones some days. When we stop in the cool of the shade, bumping through low brush and hidden, Clyde takes out the blanket and spreads it out atop the dry grass. Wild carrot lazy in the air on either side, and the low sun romance makes me pull my hair down, smooth across my cheeks, plump up my beret. He opens up the door to me, the brown of his eyes so dark. His fine hand slips behind my back and one beneath my knees, so slow, the pain still there and sometimes very bad. Then I'm up and turn my head to move on out into the hot, still air, hoping for some breeze. We lie on the blanket, eat some beans and find some scraps of meat, share it out with care. There is so little now. And sure, I know I am not the pretty thing I used to be. I say, how long will you love me looking like this? He says I am a liar, but he is always sweet that way. I do love him so. When will we die? Will it be together right away? Or will there be some long, slow time of grief?
Talking Spanish with the women. Buck imagines Willie and Bonnie. Before I found my own ways, I practiced what I heard the kid would do. Used manners, looked him in the eye, whispered serious words. I fell in love most eagerly and married 3 times. Their soft mouths, shining hair. I never took the time for reading or writing the way the kid could. I reckon him a knowledgeable man. Knew how to parlay language of the South. When Billy died, they say many Spanish women mourned.
Blanche thinks on the night in Platte City. We were bone tired of it. Sitting in our cabin at the tourist lodge, Buck polishing my riding boots and saying he reckoned we could move to Canada, live there without trouble. He'd always liked to hunt and trap, and we could make a life there, leave the others long behind. I walked on over to the store for soap and saw some folks just looking at me strange. Stopped their talking when I passed among them. I found a weigh scale, showed I'd lost nearly 20 pounds since starting on this run. I went straight to Clyde's cabin to say things feel wrong. But Clyde sent WD for sandwiches and beer, and nothing further happened. Later on, we went to sleep and then heard the law move around outside. And one shot another by mistake, and that's when we started for the car. Bonnie hobbling there and Clyde full ready at the wheel, but WD and Buck and me, we had to run some distance from where we were to the ford. Bullets around us everywhere. Some tore right into Buck, his arms and his chest, and took out some skull. I saw the brain clear open there. Oh, my dear daddy. I dragged him to the car. Lord knows how. WD firing away above my head, time stretched out forever. Nightmare flash. I dragged him to the car, and I was leaning over Buck inside the car. I did not want him to hurt no more, but bullets smashed the glass and splintered, ripped my eyes. I was near blind, blood sloshing on the floor. Buck called out for water, told me he was hurting just a little, and Clyde drove on till he could see the sun.
Bloodstained dress found near scene of gun battle, Kansas City, July 22nd, Associated Press. A woman's dress described by D.R. Clevenger, Platte County prosecutor, as being so bloodstained that it was impossible to tell the color of the garment, was found in a pasture near a tourist camp at Platte City. The camp was the scene of a gun battle between peace officers and 2 gunmen early Thursday. Officers believe they wounded one of the men and also one of the 2 women accompanying them. The Kansas City office of the U.S. Bureau of Investigation say the men have been identified as Clyde and Marvin Buck Barrow, sought for killings in Joplin, Missouri, and Alma, Arkansas. Kansas City Star, July 22nd, 1933.
WD, Dexfield Park. We pulled into a bunch of trees not far off from a river. Figured it was the place for Buck to die. Clyde and I, we dug a grave, but Buck lived on through that long night and days beyond. Clyde and Bonnie rode off for supplies while I told Buck and Blanche I'd had enough of outlaw life for good, and they reckoned that was right. I was 17 and needed to get home, get back to my mama. Clyde brought back a lot of food and bandages and new clothes and a brand new Ford V8 sedan. Someone was around just hunting blackberries, I reckon, but saw us real clear. He was all lying on some blankets looking poorly. Not a likely gang, us. At night, we tried to sleep as best we could, Blanche in the car and Bonnie tending Buck. Two of the worst types you could imagine. Clyde and me upon the ground. A screech owl sailed above our heads just a-hollering. And then, when the posse came upon us, I knowed hell on earth. Clyde's arm was shot up bad, and half the way downhill, Buck fainted. He was over. I knew it then. Bonnie in her nightgown dragging through the woods, Blanche screaming far behind us, and the bullets just kept on coming. Dogs just barking like mad. The darkness. Stumbling on and on into the night, Clyde knew where he was heading, and he found a farm. Whistled hard for me to carry Bonnie. We had an empty 45, but when he waved it at the farmer, that old coot was scared. He heard the Barrow gang were on the loose, and he had no money for gas. He said we was welcome to his car, though. We found some cans of kerosene and got away as far as Green, Nebraska.
Bonnie, awake in Dexfield Park. I swear I heard the lions call. No, I know for sure the zoo's been gone for years. It was as clear as daylight, but the moon high-strung, stars so still I tried to stir the waters of the sky with just my fingertip. To lean down over Buck and see inside his brain choked me hard. All else asleep, my job to watch. I did not mind it. Hours passed swift as a dream. The only thing I would ever tell was this. Screech owl sailing by. I thought it was Buck's spirit running free.
Blanche recalls the capture. The dew was coming down and Buck was sleeping. We were pressed close up against a log. It was so cold and wet, and someone shouted, "There they are!" And right then it seemed like 30 men shooting at us with rifles. Buck come to again, took the pistol. I don't know if he fired a shot before. They hit him 6 more times. He threw his body over mine and held me in his arms. "Baby," he said, "you got me this time." And I believed the life was draining from his body. I just went mad. I was screaming, begging them to stop, but then he breathed again and I fell on him crying, "I don't want you to die, not here in this field, Daddy. I could not bear it. My daddy needs white sheets to die on." But I kissed him goodbye. They took us God knows where, and they were rough to him, though I begged them to be gentle, and I lit a cigarette and asked for water for him. Was he angry at me that I gave up? I only wanted him to die in a bed and not to be torn to shreds. They laid him out upon the floor, me crying out as they led me through the door, screaming, "Goodbye, Daddy. Goodbye."
The doctor to Buck. "Where are you wanted by the law?" "Where I been," I said. The stench from my hurt head keeps them all far across the room from me, unless to give the needle. Then they come close. Sometimes the needle makes me sleep. Sometimes it makes me talk. Then Mama and Elsie come, and there's weeping. Took Blanche away a long time ago. Is this her with me now? I grip the hand of a sweet girl. Please, please don't go.
Mrs. Barrow held at Platte City, Kansas City, July 26, Associated Press. Mrs. Blanche Barrow, 22-year-old wife of Marvin Ivan Buck Barrow, Dallas, Texas, gunman, arrived in Platte City early today from Iowa, where she and her husband were captured in a fight with officers near Dexter. D.R. Clevenger, county prosecutor at Platte City, said Mrs. Barrow probably would be arraigned late today on a charge of assault with intent to kill in connection with the wounding of 3 men in a battle with officers at a tourist camp near Platte City. Meanwhile, her husband is in dangerous condition in Perry, Iowa, from wounds suffered in the battle at Dexter. Kansas City Star, July 26, 1933.
prayer. Pray to find the way to heaven. Seems like every day I get up and drive some more, weary of this life. Here I am in this old motor court, and near me the woman I have loved most in this world. She is so dear to me that I ask my woeful self what brought her to me. Lord, I must not be so bad as all they think. Here I am, okay with whatever is to come. You know that, Lord, as I talk to you most nights like this upon my knees. Is it what I must expect, to go to hell? Is that where Buck is at? Do not know if he knows your ways. I always believed all those pictures of you and listening to those stories of your pain. I don't know how you bared it sometimes. Why you didn't walk away, but took the bat upon yourself to save our wretched souls. And you love us, they say, and it gives me peace to know it as I lay down my head each night and let the dreams come on. The East End break, Clyde. Been dreaming of this for what feels like all my life, as if there was a clear before when I stood upright and felt a complete, and after was all the rest of it. This kind of break was not what I was waiting for. I was the driver, only that. So many piled inside that car, the two in the trunk and screaming all the way, sweat and tales of jangled times behind, and high riders bleeding from the mouth. One fat white stomach punctured with sure aim and did not succumb for 3 long days, pained and moaned, and law pressing close beside. They gave me not a dog's chance, is what he whispered at the end. I was the driver. Light up the chair for me. To hide the guns was the danger beyond it all. To work with only one escape road leads to hell. Said at first I would not do the job, but this way Bonnie said I'd waited far too long, so I went along. I was the driver. Turned out some was caught and some pled out for deals. One boy who rode away with us was Henry Methvin. He was going down real fast those days. Brains was Raymond Hamilton, who started hanging around with the scum, and I dropped him off, and I knew he'd hated me. I broke him out. Law bosses called in Hamer, said it was my plan.
Clyde Barrow rescues 5 convicts in machine gun raid on prison farm. 2 guards shot as lead hails from 6 guns. The Paris Evening News, January 17th, 1934.
Hamer and repose. It was the raid on Easton Prison Farm. Hamilton and Methvin running loose and Barrow at the wheel. I was called in. I learned their ways. The car they drove, I drove. I carried some guns, the same guns, and would have worn their clothes too, had I been puny like them. All I cares for is doing work that's fair, not caring what I'm paid. That's how I live and why I'm unsurpassed. Some hate me for my honest tongue. I turn from them.
Convict caught in Texas, Huntsville, Texas, January the 17th, Associated Press. J.B. French, one of the 5 convicts who escaped when Clyde Barrow, Texas desperado, raided the East Ham State Prison farm yesterday, has been recaptured. Bloodhounds chased French into the cabin of Gabe Wright, a Negro living near the prison farm. Wright pointed his shotgun at the convict and held him until the farm dog sergeant and his posse arrived. The New York Times, January the 18th, 1934.
I love the car because within its scope, there is both gratitude and anguish. It has saved my life and stolen my ability to run. It has let us ride together, knee to knee and thighs pressed close beneath the pig blood dash. World flying by and we could let it go because deep within the soft back seat, the revolver smiles and winks. Ammunition calls to be housed. Rifles lurk. Forget about the typewriter, all its keys and promise. There is no end to the work that can be done, because we rolled along with 8 after the Eastern break, and we were soaring then. That car could have run on nerves and fear alone, 4 thin tires bouncing on the rutted earth, yet freedom's what we knew that day. All Clyde had promised, and he had never broken his word, because it took us on a holiday or two, cruised us past some likely marks, left every other damn car choking in its dust, offered up a welcome bed where drunk or sober bones could rest, a carpet floor both merciful and thirsty, a space where we felt safe enough to sleep. It made us look like winners in this life. Easter Sunday. Some days it was the love of strangers that held me up, when I might tumble in pain and need for kin, the hunger of our worn-out lives. They thought me buoyed by freedom, wild, abandoned, loved my glamour. Easter Sunday changed it all, and quick. Then I was the nasty, dirty Moll who shot lawmen dead, like that rookie Murphy, his first day on the job. They said I shot him as he laid on the ground. They said I laughed. They said it was me the cause of so much loud weeping at the church when his fiancée Tullis walked her bridal gown right down the funeral aisle. But I never glimpsed his face. Drunk Henry's the one who done it. Henry Methvin stole our fame. He shot away all the love they bore us, the end of our good name.
2 state highway patrol officers slain as they approach auto close to Grapevine. Barrow and red-headed woman believed to have shot down policeman. Desperado and cigar-smoking Bonnie Parker thought to have been waiting for arrival. Fort Worth Star Telegram, April 2nd, 1934.
Heat. Bonnie. I've been sweating in the Texas dirt all my life. Swaggered off to school, then pirate plates and saucers in the steaming sink at work, and flirted with the customers. Could once tell the time of a hot day by how the sun cracked in beneath the blinds. We drag a faded dusty tunnel in ruts behind the car. I wish it were my shroud.
Clyde. Once I'd gotten in the Ford, the only thing inside my head was the sound of my own heart. A goddamn drum. Shoes off, guns pressed up beside my legs, I drove. Screaming going on and blood sloshed upon the floor. I did not know if it was mine nor theirs, nor did I care right then. That was heat. No time for thinking.
Frank Hamer, Texas Ranger. Sure, I'd seen their kind before, just kids without a right thought in their heads. But once Clyde killed Gene Moore, a deputy in String, Oklahoma, he'd known it was the chair for him. And Malcolm Davis, Wes Harriman, and more, lawmen alike. And after that last breakout, I knew I'd hunt them down like a blue tick on a black bear, and I'm no liar.
And the like of us may never hope for death to set us free, for the living are always after you, and the dead are after me. Bonnie Parker from Outlaws.
In the early morning of May 23rd, 1934, a 6-man posse, including Prentice Oakley, who fired the first shot, and Frank Hamer, who fired the last, lay in the woods listening for the approach of Bonnie and Clyde. Henry, Melvin's father, Ivy, parked his truck on the side of the road as a decoy. Buddy Goldston was driving his logging truck toward them all. Prentice Oakley.
36 hours we've been in this bush just waiting. Seems like these insects roar. I've sweated through my clothes and to the earth beneath. But I believe Frank Hamer is as good as he seems to be.
Frank Hamer.
I could hear him coming quite a while ago, but I kept my counsel. Best in these pure moments not to brag.
Ivy Methvin.
Am I an evil man? They promised me a pardon for my boy. To sell a body out is damn familiar. Not an evil man, not like them, but like all things biblical, like walking through a nightmare of our own.
Clyde Barrow.
Love this land. Find a place and settle here, bring mama and all who look for peace. Just driving this way leads to thinking clear and clean. The bushes sing with praise.
Bonnie Parker.
Hot wind takes away my appetite for life. My red tam lying in the back, I press my ruby shoulders down. Though I am now one ugly, scrawny girl, I can still look right and dress real sharp.
Prentice.
He better be the best, for I hear them coming. I believe we're gonna be famous this day. Shoot the souls right out of them.
Clyde.
Louisiana, sure fine life. Don't you be no lie.
Buddy Golston.
Hell, don't they know a man has got to work on this road? I got some riders up here in the cab with me, and we all see the same. A fancy car, an old green truck broke down, some fella running away.
Prentice.
Heart beating so hard I can barely hold this rifle steady. Blood pounding in my head and in my fingertips.
Clyde.
What's that Ivy doing? Bought that truck from him. I know it inside out, and he see my face, but when he turned and run from me.
Prentice.
I can see his whole head clear as day within my sights. Small man, fine and jaunty hat.
Bonnie.
Waxy paper in my hand, sick of fried bologna, but my thin bones require feeding every day. Look at that Ivy hop away like that, hands on his belly. I cannot run to save my life no more.
Hamer.
I do believe I am the righteous hand of law, and will exercise my obligations here and now. Without one shot fired, unfold them. Wait for what's to come right now. Call for their surrender.
Clyde.
Fixing to slow right on over and help him change that tire. Why is he running from me now?
Prentice.
Just one pull upon this trigger.
Bonnie.
Ivy read, and then I turn to Clyde and see his hat fly off. It is the moment. All the angels coming for me now.
Prentice.
One long high scream from her then, and we're all firing, then running towards them there.
Buddy.
What is this before me? A battleground of fire upon one car?
Ivy.
Get down into the dirt. Can I get further down? A hell of fire, rain down upon them.
Hamer.
I look down into the car and I point my gun and I shoot and shoot again until I'm done. When I turn, I cannot hear them. The man who did not follow my command.
Buddy.
I pull the truck right up next to them and look down upon their bodies leaking blood, glass and metal everywhere. I wish I had not been upon this road this day.
Prentice.
We are deaf to one another. Gunfire smoke just hanging in the air. Is this some anger dream of what my life is like? A borrowed gun to kill them with, and with my first shot fired, I did.
Hamer.
Her lip hung nearly off her face, her whole dress soaked with gore. And still I shot and shot her more.
Ivy.
Can I stand up? Where can I go now to get away from here? They better keep their word. I did it.
Shooting described. We just shot the devil out of them, officer says. St. Louis, May 23rd, Associated Press. We just shot the devil out of them. Thus, Frank Hamer, former Texas Ranger captain, today described in a copyrighted telephone interview with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the slaying near Arcadia, Louisiana, of Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker. Sure, he said, I can tell you what happened this morning. We just shot the devil out of them, that's all. That's all there was to it. We just laid a trap for them, a steel trap, you know, Bessemer steel, like gun barrels are made of. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, May 23rd, 1934.
Hamer whispers. A lone wolf by nature, I gathered up a crew who wouldn't listen. I did not know what was coming, but I usually do. I can hear ahead of most, see bullets in midair. There were many on that day. It was like passing through a dream world, deaf and walking in cordite clouds. Could smell that sweet and unreal scent of blood mixed with her light perfume. I'd be a legend now, but not like them. They'll be the famous ones. And I'll not say one more word.
Death car with gore and glass and the reek, it is towed to town, the wrecker breaking down before a schoolyard, children all running out to view the dead within. Bonnie's lip near severed from her mouth, Clyde with head blown open, hum of heat and insects, thick as thieves. It comes to rest in the town of Arcadia, home to 1,000 souls and a herd of 16,000 trying to get an up-close view. One man tries to harvest Clyde's pretty ear, another his trigger finger. Bits of Bonnie's hair and dress are snipped away. Clyde's body is a smear of red, wet rags. Bonnie has hearts tattooed upon her thigh. Beer sells for 2 bits, and you can't get a thin hand sandwich at any price. There are 17 entry wounds in Clyde, 26 in Bonnie. They are photographed, frail and naked on gurneys, sent to separate funeral homes. Someone offers Henry 10 grand for his son's body, and Emma Parker can no longer hide her hatred for Clyde. Meanwhile, the Ford V8 Flathead sits in the Arcadia impound lot, pocked by 167 bullets, filthy, but with engines still running smooth as silk. The Posse say it belongs to them, sweet ambush booty, along with all the guns and cash and trinkets from the ride. Ruth Warren disagrees. That damn car, she says, was stolen April 29 from her place in Topeka, Kansas. She comes to drive it home, then rents it out to Charles W. Stanley, who loads it on a flatbed and tours it around the country for free, though a dime per person donation would help toward the expenses. Kumi Barrow and Emma Parker joined the car on tour in March 35. A paycheck is a paycheck, after all. Henry has a job to talk about his boys, and Marie handles tickets for the show entitled Crime Does Not Pay, not long before they head back home to Dallas. Stanley runs the Death Car tour well into the 40s. People fall upon their knees and weep to see it. Arguments break out, and lawyers make their fees. The car moved hand to hand from state to state and rests today upon the floor in Whiskey Pete's Casino, Primm, Nevada. The car they lived and died in like a shrine. Damn you, Henry Ford, you and your knack for slick design. Carried in the car. 1. Remington Model 8, Remington Model 11 sawed-off, Remington Whippet, Model 1887. 10-gauge riot gun, 10-gauge semi-automatic shotgun, 10-gauge Winchester lever action, bar custom-made scattergun, up to 9 Colt automatic pistols, bar 20-shot magazines, thousands of rounds of ammunition. 2. Remington portable typewriter. 3. Drafts of poems, handwritten as well as typed by Bonnie. 4. 2 women's purses, including a marriage license, title of 1929 Marmon purchased from Carl Beatty, divorce papers, criminal pardon issued to Buck by Governor Miriam Ferguson, compact, combs, tubes of lipstick. 5. Suitcases of clothing, earrings, wigs, hair dye, and jewelry. 6. A 6-string wood guitar. 7. A saxophone. 8. A medical kit with salve and bandages. 9. Cigarettes and matches. 10. Liquor and some flasks. 11. Cash. 12. Sandwich wrappers and odds and ends for meals. 13. A dog named Snowball until the night in Joplin. 14. A rabbit named Sonny Boy for several weeks after Easter 1934. 15. Stained, torn, or worn out clothing. 16, a camera, rolls of film. 17, 15 sets of stolen license plates. 18, hats. 19, random issues of magazines, The Master Detective, True Crime. 20, sewing implements. 21, newspapers. 22, Clyde's shoes lay on the floor beside him. He drove barefoot. 23, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 people at any one time. 24, deck of cards. 25, jigsaw puzzles. 26, blankets. 27, lemons to freshen the breath after drinking. 28, a makeup case. 29, Rand McNally road maps.
200 yellow roses. L.C. Barrow recollects his brother's funeral. Out of a low flying plane, petals onto Clyde's shared grave. An outburst of my tears. I tried to hold up Mama, but we could neither of us stand. Out of the blue Texas sky, some gambler threw his chips into the open grave. Dark jackets hanging off the bones of those who could press up close. Heard there's a bigger spellbound crowd across town for Bonnie, but no roses seem falling there. If faith could raise them, they could hijack that gambler's rented plane. Getaway arrow through the weeping day.
Barrow was buried, thousands view body. Private funeral tomorrow was planned for Bonnie Parker by her mother, Dallas, Texas, May 25th, Associated Press. Clyde Barrow, until 3 days ago, the most feared killer in the Southwest, was buried at sunset tonight on a chalky West Dallas hillside near his boyhood home. Souvenir hunters snatched roses, gladioli, and peonies from the mound of earth as Barrow's mother was led wailing away. Thousands of persons had viewed his body. Far across the city in a funeral parlor, the shot-torn body of Clyde's gunwoman, Bonnie Parker, was ready for transfer to the home of her mother, Mrs. Emma Parker, awaiting private funeral services Sunday. The Dallas Journal, May 25th, 1934.
Blanche remembers the long ride. I used to believe in love the way believers play their faith, close to the chest, fanning it out when they need it most. I could have used some back there when my mother sold me for a song. A hard-handed man, he broke me surely. No more hopes for children or a tender word at best. My daddy was a kind man, but so poor he could not cope with anything but slow tilling of the dry soil, sun up, sun down, wind that brought the farm indoors. The only thing that saved him was his death-like sleep. Yet, dreams go on. Never expected to find what love was really like. How it pulled me to Buck like a chigger to the hairline, his warm brown eyes, his hands that mastered anything he put his mind to. We had such plans for living, he and I, in some woodland, bright, safe place far away from all we'd known before. We would be fine and free. We said so all the nights in tourist camps, lying awake, listening to passing cars, then the storm of bullets and blood that burst in streams on the floor out of the dead upon their backs. Who could have ever reckoned how bad it would become? The nights I'd sit up on the car and watch the stars, taste of terror in my throat and gore on my thin hands. Some nights I could not see the moon for all the horror in the way. Or maybe it was the hunger, or the endless sleepless days when all we had was fame, not the kind that I ever wanted. Outlaw woman? They didn't even know my real name. I would have gone most anywhere with Buck, but they would not let me be there in the end. Both of us broken, no use anymore. When we first met on that road in sad West Dallas, he was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen, and he loved me so. Even my daddy liked him. He was good all the way down to the bone. Went to serve out his whole term just because I asked. I wish he'd stay there now, or maybe gone to school, or left his kin behind. It was All on goddamn Clyde what happened. We were doomed. I knew it from the start. There was so much to hope for in those dusty early days. His arms around me, all the future still to come. Marie. Me and Elsie were born the last of all us kids. In 1931, we hitched the shack upon a wagon bed, hauled it down to Eagle Ford, a dusty road in the middle of the bog. Me inside it all the time, just riding. My daddy built the roof above our heads, first one on the campground and two-holer out back, so all we knew were plumb jealous of our ways. Learned just what I could from my big bros, like how to spur a rooster for a fight. Real good I was, but not so good as Buck. One year for Christmas, Bud gave me the gift I craved, a bicycle. Sure, it was stole. I rode it like a wildcat. A bike is hard and in ruts, but I could fly. Late night on the road, I watched my brothers and their girls drive by. They was most famous then. Not long before they died. Elsie and me, we got to fighting Baldy Watley. He shot into the shack into Mama's face, so she was mostly blind. I was not at her funeral. Did not see her to the grave. I was too busy in the walls, doing my time. Can I ever let it go? This shame and grieving? Me and Elsie, we did love Bud. Elsie mourned him all his life, and oft times when he spoke of him, he cried.
Half. Henry Methvin. Half grown when I went up to Eastham. Half my life already spent. 18. A roughneck on the plains. When some old punk laid his old hands on me and I cut his throat and took his car. But ended up inside, and that punk lived to tell the law I was just a liar. Eastham's where Clyde Barrow was. His time there was the worst. The brutal ways, the weariness, the nights. He chopped his foot to get released, but he said he'd come back and break me out one day. My folks, they went near mad to get me free, but weeks before my time was up, Clyde sprung me like he said. Clyde Barrow always kept his word. I brought them once or twice to Bienville Parish, where life was real lush, thick forest and mossy shade, a house for them, a bed for sleeping, my people around to talk and share a jar. Clyde kept saying they were near the end, and it was plain that Bonnie drank most all the time to dull the pain, homesickness, the fear. I soon got to worrying. It was not the end I hoped for, nor my mom, nor Pa, who said the pair, they were bad. Alone one day, I said to Ma, there could maybe be a deal to let me off the charges, sure. Had to be some plan. But Easter Sunday in the buzzing Texas heat, I leaned against the car and watched while Clyde and Bonnie slept. They'd planned a picnic with their folks, and Bonnie shared her flask. I wasn't thinking clear. I raised my bar and shot 2 lawmen off their bikes upon the road. Then laid more lead into them down there, both blown to hell and gone. Not half the papers told the truth. Most wrote it was Bonnie shot them as they bled upon the ground, their heads bouncing up and down like rubber balls. But hell, I know full well what I'd done while she lay drunk inside the car, Sonny Boy the rabbit hugged up in her arms. And it was the chair for sure. So my Pa Ivy done the deal. Stood helpless by his broke down truck that morning, May of 34. He slowed them down and then he ran. Lawmen lie like no others. They sent me back to jail. Pa died one night of those long years, crashed up some car. Then one night in 48, not long into my freedom, I drank some brew, and took to wandering the tracks, curled myself up nest-like for a sleep. Too drunk and spent to hear the post-depression, post-war booming engine bearing down. That SP locomotive cut me clean in half. Cause, shotgun. William Daniel W.D. Dub Deacon Jones, May 12th, 1916 to August 20th, 1974. Ever look a 12-gauge shotgun in the eye? I done that. Because that's what done me in. 3 blasts sent me straight to the next world, my chest filled with lead, my head with memory. The best and worst of days back then. I cannot lose the noise of that old ride, though I'd done my time for sure and worked all my years thereafter. I was mean when drunk, but mostly kindly and sweet on some good women. I lived next door to my mama like any righteous son. It was a woman ended me. All I had need of was a place to crash. She called out to her boyfriend who I was. He'd read my talk in Playboy and knew my past. He jumped right up and shot me dead on the front porch. I was a famous man, pieces on the ground, and the boyfriend proud as hell to have my blood on his hands.
Camera eye. Look in the mirror and look in the mirror and think of the times I thought myself beautiful. All the looks that came my way, from strangers, clothing that feels more like tatters than fresh laundered crepe, for a bed to sleep in and a proper cooked meal. Time for conversation, a few rolling laughs, somebody saying something that takes me back to maybe Dallas or some other town. Train whistles or dark birds flying, the rise of the breath, suddenly the loose heart, to drive, load, clean. There are more lives than this plain desperation. Look at the sandwich boards. Think of the lives, the faces and hands that promised action in the coat room at the end of a party. The looks on the faces of those on the sidewalks, the dirt roads, the car windows, anyone passing. The evening he looked at me eager and avid for a breakout. The first time I drove with him, I puked right on my dress from the joy of the speed. Yes, I said, let's just have everything. Suddenly tired, convinced it comes soon. I falter just briefly, and all this time in a purse I hid at his mama's house. The note he wrote calling me, the sweetest thing in all the world.
First arrest of Clyde Barrow at the age of 8 years, Houston, Texas, May 26, Associated Press. Perhaps the first warrant ever issued for the arrest of the late Clyde Barrow, youthful robber and killer, has been found in the files at the courthouse here by J.W. Mills, clerk of the Civil District Courts. The warrant was issued March 11, 1918 by Chester H. Bryan, former county judge, on complaint of R.R. Haddock, former chief probation officer. Barrow, then 8 years old, was charged with being an incorrigible, with wandering the streets at night, and with burglarizing a house near his home. Tried the next day in juvenile court, Clyde was sentenced to the Harris County School for Boys for an indeterminate period. He remained there for 2.5 years. T.J. Kenny, former superintendent of the school, said he considered Barrow such a quiet and conservative youngster that he brought him into his own home for a time to help take care of Mr. and Mrs. Kenny's baby. The Shreveport Times, Louisiana, May 26, 1934.
Even daylight lost its color. Clouds bleach out like soda in a straw. My foot all cramp and gristle. Time to stop driving. Tore up these roads too long. Looks like snow on treetops from the picker's cotton drift. Went that way once, is worthless. Screech owl dips, bugs whine at my ear, blanket stinks of grease, someplace near lives comfort. Blood smells like a gun before it's oiled. Snap that shut. Close up your eyes too. Sleep comes.
Billy rode on a pinto horse, Billy the Kid, I mean, and he met Clyde Barrow riding in a little gray machine. Billy drew his bridle rein, and Barrow stopped his car, and the dead man talked to the living man under the morning star. Bonnie Parker from Outlaws.